All right, I want to start like this. I'm going to name you 10 of the most popular trap albums to have come out in the 2020s, and I want you to tell me how many of these you could see yourself revisiting in 5 years from now.
All right, let's do it.
And guys, do the same thing in the comments. Let us know.
I have a feeling I'm gonna probably slander a couple of these, but let's keep going.
First up, Gunna's DS Forever.
Yes, I've definitely been bumping this.
Okay. Roddy Ricch's Live Life Fast.
Definitely not. No.
Okay. Young Thug's Punk.
Besides a couple of songs, probably not. No.
All right. Trip at Night by Trippie Redd.
No, not for me.
Polo G's Hall of Fame.
No.
Migos' Culture 3.
No.
Future and Lil Uzi Vert's Pluto X Baby Pluto.
No.
Nav's Good Intentions.
No.
A Boogie with the Hoodies, Artist 2.0.
Definitely not.
Lil Baby's My Turn.
Yes.
Yeah, you see, this is how I personally feel about trap music. I feel like it started off and in its peak was one of the most refreshing and exciting waves that we had in the hip-hop genre, but now it's become one of the most generic and formulaic.
Well, I think there's a sort of blueprint that everyone kind of, attributes to trap music. And guys, let me know if I get this right in the comment section. So, excessively long track lists that are not necessarily even needed. Predictable feature lists. That's another thing. Like remember when we used to go to let's say old trap feature lists? We're like, fuck, who's gonna feature here and here? That sentiment is completely gone. Not only that, but the sort of thing of half of the album is bangers and then half of the album is low-key melodic. And everyone places their melodic stuff on the second half of the album because then they low-key know that people are going to get disengaged with the other half of the track list. So, guys, I want to ask you something for the comment section. Do you guys think that this is more of a conversation of the quality has gone down? Or is the genre itself dying? Because I feel as if, yes, you could talk about the quality, but when you look at the commercial success of a lot of these projects, a lot of projects are hitting commercially like they used to. So I'm going to pull out a list, and I want to know your take on this, all right? So, example, Diaz Forever. 150,000 copies sold first week, debuted at number 1 of the Billboard 200 chart. Live Life Fast sold 62,000 copies first week, debuted at number 4. Punk by Young Thug, 90,000 first week, debuted at number 1. Whole Lotta Red, 100,000 first week, debuted at number 1. Hall of Fame by Polo G, 143, and debuted at number 1. Culture 3 by Migos, 130,000 copies first week, debuted at number 2. Eternal Take by Lil Uzi, 288 first week, debuted at number 1. 21 and Metro Boomin Savage Mode 2, 171 first week, debuted at number 1. Nav's Good Intentions, 135 first week, debuted at number 1. And My Turn by Lil Baby, 197 first week, debuted at number 1. So I feel as if the want is still there, but I have a hard time believing that people still think that the quality's up after all these years. So what's your take on that? Looking at the scope of it, what needs to happen and what's necessarily gone down in value? Because the commercial success is still low-key there. It's still stronger than ever when it comes to numbers, in my opinion.
The commercial success is definitely still there because if you look at the numbers from some of our favorite trap albums from the peak of trap music, which I believe to be from the year 2014 up until 2018 to 2019 at the latest, if you look at some of those albums like Astroworld, yes, sold 500,000 copies because of the bundles. If you look at albums like Culture and Culture 2, within that 100,000 range, similar to a lot of the albums that you just mentioned. So the commercial success isn't dying down, but the quality is suffering really badly. And as a fan, it's just becoming tedious to get through these trap albums now because, like you were saying, there is a formula. You do have excessively long track lists. You have those feature lists that are super predictable. You have a playlist feel to the album where you feel like there's no sonic direction. These songs were kind of just feel like a bunch of loose singles that were sprinkled into one project. Not only that, but a lot of these albums suffer from something that I like to call first listen-itis, where you bump it for the first time and you have no feeling inside of you to even want to go back. There's no urge to revisit those projects. So what do you think kind of led to the state that we're at right now in trap? Because something to consider too is the fact that it has been around for such a long time.
It has been around for a long time, and it really only got popularized, I would say, between that 2015 to 2020 range. I think that was probably the peak of it, where dude, it absolutely blew up everything. And even at that, think about it. It was the most prominent, let's say, subgenre within hip-hop at that time. And that's when hip-hop became the most listened to genre as a whole in the United States for the first time ever.
Was that 2018 maybe?
I believe it was 2017 or 2018. Yeah. I don't have the exact stat on me. But that's what's crazy to me. And what I think is happening is that you have certain elements in trap that are always consistent. So obviously, everything on this list is not going to be from Atlanta and everything's not going to have the same formulaic thing. But people have started to give their own renditions of it, and people have started to give their own twists. But the things like the 808s, the things like the drum patterns, the thing like the content matter, also the types of, like, let's say, the flows that they're using, like, these are all prominent things I feel as if are still in these trap projects, but never really got revolutionized. But I feel as if one project that has pushed that boundary, but has led this artist to have to go into different genres and take elements of that and put them into a trap album, is Playboi Carti with Whole Lotta Red. Like, as many gripes as I have with that project, think about it. The innovation is fucking crazy. Now people are starting to realize how profitable this sort of sound is, and it almost feels as if this is all coming back. And we actually did a video on this on the YouTube, by the way, like overrated or underrated for Whole Lotta Red, and we had agreed that it was necessarily overrated because, people are calling this the next MBDTF, but when you really look at it, the influence is there. Like, there's a certain type of, like, stigma around it. So how do you feel about that? Like,
you see, I really don't care about that because that's one of the very few outliers. You have that. You have Baby Keem's The Melodic Blue. You have Roddy Ricch's Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, which was a pretty solid record. You have Chief Keef, who just released Fornum, which is actually a really solid trap record.
But I don't know if you consider that more drill or maybe in that trap.
Yeah, it's kind of still within that trap lane to a certain degree, but, like, I just feel like there's very few of those outliers. When you're looking at trap as a whole, I just feel like a lot of artists don't know how to trim the fucking fat off of their albums, bro. And a big thing with that is this new streaming era and the fact that these artists know that to really maximize their profit on these album releases, they have to release 20 songs. They have to get the most songs per stream. I do blame them in the sense that, like, yes, I want everybody to chase their bag and to make the most money as they possibly can. Like, I want my streams to kind of benefit the artists the most they possibly can, but it's kind of ruining the album experience. So when I look at my favorite trap albums, projects like Young Thug's Jeffrey, there's only 10 songs in there. If I look at Without Warning from 21 Savage, Offset, and Metro Boomin, and a project that stays so cohesive in chasing this Halloween aesthetic, having these very dark piano riffs, having these sounds that are just creepy and have this dark aesthetic overall, that to me is a project that I can play from front to back and not get fed up of. A thing that I feel like is the case now with so many of these trap albums, and you could disagree with me if you want, but I'll give you an analogy. If I'm going to McDonald's and I'm getting a Big Mac combo, I'm getting that Big Mac combo because I like everything that's included in it, especially the actual burger. I like the fucking patties. But if I'm looking at an album like Polo G's Hall of Fame, maybe I want a side order of Bloody Canvas, or maybe I want a side order of Rapstar, but I'm not buying that whole product. I'm not buying that combo of that album.
Oh, that's facts.
And I feel like that's kind of the vibe with a lot of these albums, is that I'll pick a couple of songs out, but as an overall enjoyable experience, I'm not buying that Big Mac combo if I don't like the burger.
No, that's very true. Yeah, you can't, like, you kind of get short-sighted too with new trap releases, and that's sort of the feeling that I have with it. One modern trap release that I really have been enjoying is DS Forever, and I'll explain to you why. The first half of that track list perfectly captivates what a trap album should sound like. Like from example, from 1 to 12. Let's say Stop It at Too Easy for me. That's exactly what, in my opinion, a trap album should feel like.
That's half the album.
Exactly, banger after banger. So now it's a kind of thing of like, do you feel as if you have to compromise? Because if you're gonna just start going into all these albums and just dreadfully going through them, like why even listen to them at this point? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, that's at least how I feel. Like, I have to go into these trap albums and kind of expect it because it is the new trap wave. Like, people have a hard time making projects. People have a hard time making albums. People don't sit down and, craft that vision anymore. I just feel as if people are not as hungry anymore. People want to give you that formulaic thing. So would you ever compromise? Like, would you ever go into an album now and say, like, okay, I got what I needed out of it. I got a full track list low-key out of the first half like I did with DS Forever. I just won't revisit the other half, and I'll just put this whole thing to bed, and I'll enjoy the album for what it is. Like, do you feel as if you could do that?
I mean, I think now the problem with me is the fact that I go into a trap album like Gunna's DS Forever with totally different expectations, because I know I'm probably going to treat it like a playlist and pluck out what I want. I know that I'm probably never listening to that album from start to finish ever again after that first listen, because there's no reason to. There's too much filler for me to actually want to dive back in a serious way. But overall, I just feel like, especially coming from someone who spent their teenage years during the most iconic years of the trap scene, the music's just not hitting the same anymore, bro. And like, this is coming from someone who's loved trap music and everything that it's had to offer. And listen, in terms of the production style, I will say this: 808s, those snare drums, the hi-hats, the synths. That's what makes trap music what it is. Those are the elements that we're hearing on albums like Ariana Grande's Positions. Those are the types of sounds that we're hearing implemented in today's EDM music. So I feel like trap music hit its ceiling because not only did it go all across hip-hop, where you have Eminem rapping with those kinds of flows because he's poking fun at it. You have J. Cole doing the same thing, but you have artists from other genres who are tackling these sounds just because they know it's marketable. So when it reaches that point and it blows out and it blows up that much, to me, it's reached its limit. It's reached its ceiling, and it's gonna take serious innovation and evolution for it to ever get back to a healthy spot.
Okay, so let me ask you this then: what do you feel as if it takes to get it back there? Like, you said it hit its ceiling, so technically, by those terms, like now we're on a decline.
Yeah,
right. Like
absolutely.
we're on a heavy decline. So, do you think there's ever going back to that prime age? Who do you think can do it? Like, what's gonna happen? Because even at that, like, remember how sick the emerging, trap scene was? Like, you had Uzi dropping, you had 21 Savage, you had Migos, you had, Travis Scott coming up. Like, these were artists that kind of defined this. Gucci Mane got out of prison and was releasing banger after banger after banger. You had so many different artists tackling, let's say, the essential sort of foundation of trap music, but adding their own twist to it. That's what was so cool about trap music, in my opinion, is that you had all these types of different styles coming out. Like, listen to an Uzi record and listen to a 21 Savage record, two completely different records stylistically. Same thing for Travis Scott, same thing for Gucci Mane, same thing for anyone who has dominated within that 2015 to 2020 period. So my thing is now, like, where is that room for experimentation? And that's what I think, I like Color Reddit for. And I was talking about it at the beginning of this. Like, it pushed boundaries, it pushed the envelope. Like, it's one of the only trap albums in modern like sort of feeling that has that sort of replay value for fans. Like, you could see how there's a cult community behind it. You could see how they're falling in love with it. So now that we're on a decline, right? What has to be done? Like, even at that, is there even an emerging scene that's coming out to be able to innovate?
It's super simple because we're gonna keep getting these mainstream trap albums from our favorite artists who have given us a lot of the same projects over time. I mean, for example, Young Thug, he stepped out of his comfort zone with Punk. It wasn't his best album, but he kind of gave us his rendition of a singer-songwriter album because you had a lot of beats with the acoustic guitarist and shit like that. So I think artists need to take risks at the end of the day, the same way that Playboi Carti did with Whole Lotta Red, the same way that he's done throughout his whole career with the baby voice, with a new demeanor where he's kind of personifying a vampire, like doing shit and thinking outside of the box. Someone like Travis Scott saying that he's going to come out and drop his next album, Utopia, which he describes as psychedelic rock, something that kind of flips trap on its head. You know what I'm trying to say?
Exactly.
Bring something that's really innovative to the genre. I feel like that's what's fucking lacking. And I mean, what do you think? Like, name me one of your favorite trap albums and name me the qualities an album like that had that a lot of these recent trap albums are lacking.
Okay, so I'll go back to DS2.
Okay.
I think that's probably the first one that comes to mind for me. And I think it's the type of energy that you're getting out of it too. Like, when you're listening to DS2, there's a certain type of energy that comes out. And listen, to replicate DS2 is like trying to replicate Omatic, in my opinion, for trap. Like, it's really like that cornerstone. Like, it's like that holy grail of trap music for me. And it's because the energy that comes out of it, like that sort of like that new fresh sound that was never presented to the scene. So I think what I'm looking for at a trap album cannot necessarily even be replicated because it's been done before, right? Like, as a listener now, you can only sit back and watch because practically everything's been done. Like, if you want psychedelic trap, you got Travis Scott for that. If you want a different rendition of it, you have all kinds of different artists, and you could dive into extremely lengthy catalogs. It's also that this came up in a prominent era where where SoundCloud was pushing a lot of these records, where you and I were 15 years old and we didn't necessarily have Spotify or Apple Music yet, but we had access to this music. So that's the whole culture behind trap music, at least for us coming up. And a lot of people from the traditional sense look at trap music as only a southern thing. I don't think it's that anymore, for how it's exploded to the scene and how so many different people have made their own versions of it. But looking now at it, what's the one thing you'd want to see out of modern trap albums? Like, what's the one thing you really can't fuck with when going into a modern one? Is it the lengthy track list, the predictable features, the lazy flows? Like, what is it for you that really gets you at this point?
Yeah, it's definitely just that lack of quality control. I mean, I think that's what it kind of boils down to, because it's not even a question of like, albums shouldn't be 20 songs long. I mean, some of the best albums of all time are around that length. If you look at DMX's It's Dark and Hell is Hot, if you look at albums like the Marshall Mathers LP, they're around that 20 song mark, but every song plays into the theme of the album, or at least the sonic feel of it. And now it just feels like these artists are putting together these projects and not even themselves knowing if their talents are capable of even putting out material like that. You have a lot of artists who are putting out these melodic songs that might appeal to a TikTok audience because they're softer and they have a catchy melody, even if their vocals sound unpolished. I just feel like there's certain benchmarks for a trap album that in their heads ring success, but doesn't really translate to quality. I just feel like it's a game where now artists are creating albums and they have a checklist next to them, and it's like, okay, 20 songs, check. Lil Baby and Gunna on my album, check. And it kind of just feels stagnant. It feels formulaic, and it's just, honestly, as a music fan, bro, these trap albums have gotten boring to me. I'm halfway through them, and the problem is that we're still consuming some of these types of songs. If you look at Way Too Sexy from Drake, Future, and Thugger, that's an example of one of those generic formulaic songs where it went #1. It was the most streamed song off of
Do you
Certified
consider
Lover
that
Boy.
trap, like with all the 808s?
The production, yeah, of course.
Okay, so then going back to that, do you think it's just a product of like us getting older now and kind of like we listen to too much to like what's the deal with it? Because like, bro, I went through Diaz Forever and like, okay, I'll take you through my whole thing with it. I never thought I was gonna like another trap album again, bro. Like that's like there was consecutive.
It really hit that hard for you, eh?
It was really nice, bro, because I
didn't
felt
fuck
like
with
I
it
was
too much.
back listening to like there felt like there was a sonic soundscape to it. Like
Yeah.
it felt really fucking nice. Like regardless of the melodic songs, you know, like I could get past those. I don't have to go back and bump those. Those are not my things. But when I have like a decent 10 to 12 tracks that I could take off an album, fuck it, I'm going back, bro. I'm not gonna scrap the rest of that just because I don't like it.
We
you
weren't
know?
making excuses like that for projects like Barter 6. You know what I mean? Like there's
No, I get it, but like, are we gonna get a Barter 6? Like,
I know,
that's what
but
I'm trying
that's
to
what
say.
I
man.
want. That's the kind of
I know, but you're not
standard
gonna
I'm
get
shooting
that. But
for.
what I'm trying to say is that now we kind of have to accept the quality for what it is, and
Yeah.
we have to kind of go forward with it. But even at that 2021, I think the best trap record that was produced that year was A Gangsta's Pain by Moneybagg Yo. Like that was original. Like, you know, the rapping was on it was phenomenal. The production was phenomenal. It felt like there was this, you know, this new twist on trap, and that's why I think it was so respected amongst the industry as a record, because it was different than what you were getting from everyone else. For example, like going back to Polo G's Hall of Fame, right? Like, you know, people could, you know, argue that it's drill infused or whatever it is, right? But
On some songs, yeah.
on some songs, but it's really mostly like those 808s and those hi-hats that are leading the production, and especially the flows that he's using and the content matter throughout it. Again, it didn't feel polished. It didn't feel as if something that like, okay, I want to play this in my headphones and like I'm gonna enjoy listening to this.
Yeah.
So why are people still consuming it? Like, what's your take on that?
I think it's a sound that is so familiar for people. Because like I said
That's
earlier,
true.
if you look at songs like Old Town Road, for example, which is kind of this trap, rap, country crossover, it blew up because it spoke to so many audiences because you had this mix of elements. And like what I'm about to say is kind of a conversation for another time, but I feel like we are entering that time where genres are getting blurred out and kind of everything's bleeding into one type of commercial sound. That's kind of what's happened with trap, where you're getting artists from so many genres exploring those sounds. But listen, in terms of like the future of the trap scene, I just feel like it's really lacking that innovation. And if that innovation does not come, then people will eventually get tired of it. I mean, I am already. There are certain artists that make that kind of music that I'm still into and I'm still looking out for, but there really is that lack of quality. But guys, let us know in the comments how you feel about the future of trap music, and if you think it is dying out. Ant and I think that there is potential to it, even though there's a massive decline. And by the way, thank you to our Patreon members who actually voted for this episode. If you guys want to have your say in future episodes, check out the link which is available in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching the full video, and if you're new to NFR, be sure to hit that subscribe button, as we'll be keeping you guys updated with the latest album releases in terms of update videos, album reviews, and our own original series on the weekly. And we also have our Patreon plan available in the description below, where you can access weekly bonus content and also access to our Discord. So be sure to check out all of that, and we'll catch you in the next one.